Instagram optics, online optics, Chinese optics, optics of unknown location. Can we trust them?
Can we trust him?
Honestly, I don't know. However, over the past few months, I have been reached out to by several optics companies and other gear companies asking me to review their product. Some of their products are questionable at best. A lot of these are closer to maybe airsoft quality. However, one optic manufacturer reached out to me and I was going to say no to them, but I was curious because they stated they had what is called astigmatism relief. For those of you who don't know, the long and short of astigmatism is if you are looking at a red dot, you look through your red dot and it looks like a J.J. Abrams lens flare. Some see it as a starburst pattern, some see it as a big red smear, some see it as, but it's not a crisp red dot. So when this company reached out to me and I saw astigmatism relief, I was curious and I wanted to know how much it actually helped. Now, full transparency, I was reached out to by Cyelee Optics on Instagram asking to do a review of their SR28 optic, as you see here. For your reading and viewing pleasure, I will include my entire conversation with Cyelee right here. Couple things. I am not a review channel. I was really more curious about the astigmatism relief, but I did think I could give my impressions, my thoughts on this product. Once again, with full transparency, I was given this optic for free, which is about a $200 value, depending on the discount codes that you receive online. I, for one, am not going to give my integrity out for a $200 optic. I asked if they wanted a positive review or if they wanted an honest review, and they told me, we just want your honest thoughts. Like, normally I would say no because I wasn't that curious about another online optic who might pop up and be gone in 10 years. But I suffer from astigmatism. I look through my red dot and I see a massive starburst. So I wanted to give my thoughts on that. Now, as I said, Cyelee gave me this optic for free. Are they sponsoring the channel? No. Are they giving me money? No. Did they provide any ammunition for this review? No. So I'm very inclined to give my honest thoughts because I really don't give a shit. I was just curious about the astigmatism relief, and it's a bit of a budget optic, and there's always those questions, there's always those comments on if a budget optic is worth it or not. So today on the Reaver Approach channel, we are looking at the Cyelee Chameleon Optic. I am not going to bore you with specifications that you can all find online at their website. Now, what makes me qualified to what makes me qualified to do any sort of online review? Honestly, nothing. I am a regular guy. I'm a regular shooter. I never served in the military, armed forces of any kind. I am a regular guy, just like the majority of you. So I wanted to give you a regular guy's opinion of this optic. So all that aside, let's jump into it. First impressions. My first impressions of this optic are, one, it is ugly. It is probably the most ugly optic I've ever seen on a handgun, and I absolutely mean that. Is that a little harsh? Maybe. But none of us can say that sometimes aesthetics don't matter. For me, the Trijicon RMR is just the peak aesthetics when it comes to a red dot for a pistol. This is far from it. Boy, have we strayed far from God. Now, you might ask, why are you putting it on the Glock 19 instead of your very beloved HK-VP9? Well, my friends, that is because the Glock deserves the trash that I give it. If I was to compare this to any optic as far as the footprint and the look, it is going to be the Trijicon SRO. The SRO, I believe, is made out of polymer. This is made out of some sort of steel, maybe an aluminum. The specifications are online for you nerds that are very interested in that sort of stuff. But when I first pulled it out of the box, it felt heavy. I looked up the specifications online because it felt so heavy in my hand, and it stated that it was very close to the Trijicon RMR. I'll go ahead and put the weights up on screen for you, but that felt weird to me. But it felt dense in my hand, like it was made out of lead or some shit. Something that they stated online, it was an hooded window. What that means is there's a little bit of a hood, there's a little bit of an overhang on the front and back of the glass. This states that it's going to help make sure that the glass isn't going to get like water droplets on it as you're out there shooting. The thing is, realistically speaking, you're gonna shoot, you're gonna do your drills, and then you're gonna holster your gun. And which direction does the precipitation come from?
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
Well, honestly, right now the snow is coming down sideways. For those of you who are not physicists, you're a physicist. Tell me it comes straight down. And so one way or another, you're going to get water in your window and you're going to have to give it a wipe off. That's one of those reasons why enclosed emitters are a little bit easier, because it's on the outside. It's a little bit easier to get to and wipe off. So does this actually help? Honestly, I see it as negligible, especially right now. It is already getting snow in the window because it's coming down sideways. I'm out shooting and it's just going to get in. It will help a little bit if you're shooting a quick drill, but the way I see it, it's a bit of a moot point. Next order of business is the window and the reticle. I have never used a large window red dot on a handgun before, and I'll be honest, it felt pretty nice. I liked it. A little bit more space up top, because if you lose the dot under recoil, it kind of just gets away from you, then it's a little bit easier to track because you have more space where you can see that dot wins. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but I liked it. It was nice. Now, the reticle itself. The reticle is an 8 MOA dot. For me, that's kind of huge.
Sometimes they say huge.
8 is, it's pretty big, folks. For me, I prefer my dots to be a little bit smaller and a little bit more precise for two reasons. One, I can be a little bit more precise at long range, which for my CCW, I like. Next, the starburst pattern with my astigmatism. The starburst from the astigmatism that I have isn't quite as noticeable if I have a smaller dot. God, it's so fucking cold. The dot on my Trijicon RMR is a 3.25 MOA, and that enables me to have precision at long range. Now, Cyelee markets this as a competition and personal defense optic, so it's a little bit closer range. They aren't really anticipating that you're going to be shooting out shots at 100 yards. So that is the direction that they went with this optic. That was their reasoning behind it. The larger dot does make it a little bit easier to find. However, I think a circle dot reticle gives you the best of both worlds. Now, this optic does not have a circle dot reticle, but some other optics like Holosun's do, because it is a larger reticle that you can get your eyes on target for, but also gives you that center dot to be a little bit more precise. Now, with that comes cost, and I understand that, and this is a budget-friendly optic, but if you're considering something like that, just something to keep in mind. So far, I've put about 600 rounds through the Cyelee Chameleon. Is that a long-term review? No. I didn't want to shoot the cost of ammo that was higher than the optic itself. So for a limited review, for a more first impressions, I was okay with putting it like that. So far, it has held zero, had no issues. I've banged it around. I've dropped it.
No, don't do it. No.
I've smacked it on some steel. I've racked it off my boot. Lost my balance. So far, everything has held up. I have not noticed a shift in zero. I can hit C-zone at 50 yards without any problem. So far, everything is holding true. Today, we're gonna put it through a little bit more of a robust test. Ooh, hit with some authority. But by no means is this an insane torture test, because I am testing from the everyday side of things, not really the crazy torture test. If it breaks, it breaks. But for the everyday guy, I think this is going to be just fine as far as my tests are concerned. If you want to see some crazy, insane torture tests, there's plenty online that you can go see, and they break the optics. It is not indestructible for sure. One thing about the snow is that it always keeps your drink cold in between shoots. The astigmatism relief was actually quite good. I had a noticeable difference between my Trijicon RMR, a Vortex Viper, as well as this Cyelee optic when looking through the optic without corrective lenses on. It made a noticeable difference for me. So as far as the astigmatism relief goes, points to Cyelee for making that. Now, night vision. For those of you who are interested in shooting with this optic under night vision, one thing to remember is the large reticle does make it a little bit harder to shoot under NV. The glass quality was acceptable, especially for a pistol when you're shooting at close range. I've shot with a few other optics and they had a lot more coatings and tints, and honestly, the glass is a little bit more clear with this as opposed to the Trijicon RMR, so that is certainly a plus. The Trijicon RMR is notorious for having that dark blue tint, so that just makes shooting at a little bit longer than 20 to 25 yards a little bit harder under NV depending on the lighting conditions. Would I carry this on my concealed carry handgun? At this point in time, no, not yet. I do not know enough about the optic. It does not have the track record of some other companies, so I am not willing to put it on my concealed carry just yet. But that's just me. That is only my opinion, which is why instead of putting it on my concealed carry, I put it on a Glock 19. I was not sure if I could trust this optic, so I was unwilling to do that, but your mileage may vary. Now, as far as fogging is concerned, I have not noticed this fogging more than my Trijicon RMR when I'm out in conditions such as these, so I don't think it performs any differently than that, at least for the testing that I've done in my variety of shooting conditions, as you can see today. Now, the big question is reliability, durability. I can tell you the Trijicon RMR has its patented design with that curved hood up top in order to mitigate damage to the glass. That makes the Trijicon RMR the king as far as durability is concerned and for the size and weight. The Chameleon has a very different design. It is this large hooded window. Now, what that means is the weakest point is going to be the top point. That is just physics, and if you drop your gun, likely it's going to drop something like this. So far, I've dropped it a fair amount. You can see a fair amount of wear and tear up top on the window as I've smacked it around, and I have not lost zero, and I have not damaged the glass at all. But we will see. Time will tell. Man, I don't know how you guys do appendix carry. The holster is going up into my guts and down into my thigh, and I just hate it. Anyway, so I just have a steel range campfire right here. We're gonna smack it around and see how it does. We're gonna rack it off the slide a whole bunch. I'm not being particularly gentle with it. This front window area is getting pretty well banged up. We'll show it in some B-roll here. Let's give it a few more. Pretty banged up at this point in time, but one of the good things about this is the fact that the window is recessed, so if it does hit any gravel, it's not going to directly impact on the glass. In case you're wondering which one broke first, the answer is my iron sights from Trijicon. So when people say iron sights won't fail you, they might be wrong. So that's gone. That's a little disappointing. Now, all cards on the table, my iron sights were a little loose. They were a little cattywampus. But they're definitely gone now, and those don't exist anymore. So let's just keep going. How's it looking? Dot's still on? Ooh, we did have our first crack. So that's a little disappointing because it's maybe dropping from about 4 feet onto this. And that shit busted now. There's a small crack in the window along with a little bit of delamination. That alone is going to tell me it is not ready for any form of concealed carry. I smacked it around on here. The glass didn't break, no problem, but none of that pressure was on the glass. It was on the front of the optic. But this tells me that you can drop your optic onto the concrete and your glass is going to break. Is it going to break with every single drop? No, I don't think so, but this did impact with direct steel and it did break. So if you drop it on the concrete, it is very likely that that same thing could happen to you. Is it a one-off? I don't know. My sample size is only 1. Ooh, hit with some authority. Oh, all right, and that's that. Now, after dropping it a few times, the glass did crack. There was some slight cracking up top. And then I dropped it one more time, direct impact onto the hood, and the window is completely shattered at this point in time. It is, I would say, unusable, other than very, very close encounters. So, is this ready for your concealed carry gun? I don't think so. So some final thoughts on the Cyelee Optic. Is this ready for concealed carry? Personally, I wouldn't put it on mine. That's just me. The tests that I put it through weren't egregious. I wouldn't call it a torture test, but I was fairly rough with it. Am I being unfair? Maybe. I can tell you things like the RMR and some other optics are going to be a lot more reliable. Is that indicative of Cyelee as a company? I wouldn't say so. It could be, but it is a budget offering, to be fair. What I think the largest downfall is for the Cyelee Chameleon is the fact that it has a rounded top like this. This makes it a lot more sensitive to drops. Now, as we've seen today, after a couple drops, it cracked, and then after another drop of the same height onto steel, the entire pane of glass shattered. So I see that as a problem. The Trijicon RMR is definitely more reliable than this, but it does have a different design and the price point is a lot higher. For me, I would put a little bit more coin into my red dot if I'm putting on a concealed carry gun. If this is for competition or anything like that, I say go for it. It's fine for a nice budget offering if you're not trying to break the bank and you just want something to shoot. It still held zero despite the abuse, but the pane of glass did shatter. I can hit targets from 25 feet with it, but pushing out further past that, I definitely struggle to get hits on target with the broken optic. Now, the big comparison is going to be the Trijicon SRO and the Cyelee Chameleon. Once again, that is an unfair comparison because the price point is substantially different. The Trijicon SRO is this much money, the Cyelee Chameleon is this much money and substantially less than that. So it is an unfair comparison, but that is going to be the fairest comparison as far as design goes. Is the design itself sensitive, or is it a victim of poor manufacturing quality?
Well, that's that.
Now, as you can see, the Trijicon SRO fell victim to the same shatter point as the Cyelee Chameleon. Now, this might be indicative of the design. Now, I went and found some of the more common carry red dots, and I did a little bit of research as to see if the common carry red dots, things like Hollow Suns and other such offerings, maybe some Vortex offerings, held up the same amount. So a few drops onto a hard, flat surface. And I can tell you, they did hold up a little bit more. So that tells me that maybe this optic just isn't quite ready for concealed carry. If I'm going to put a red dot on my pistol, I really want it to be able to take a few drops and take a few hits. And the Cyelee took a few hits, but the biggest issue was the fact of the way it was designed. The Trijicon RMR is not designed that way. So because of its patented design, it is a little bit more durable than something like this. But once again, for a regular shooter, maybe it's a competition shooter, I would say, yes, this is totally fine. But for concealed carry, I am hesitant to put this on my concealed carry. Now, this is only one guy's opinion. I am just some dude on the internet. These are just my first impressions of an Instagram optic. Of course, take whatever I say with a grain of salt. If you are researching the Cyelee optic, check out some other reviews as well. And maybe I just had a sample size of one and my failure point is a rare one. All right, a couple things that I feel like are worth mentioning that I did not talk about in the video. One, I did contact Cyelee after the optic broke and I let them know, it's like, hey, just so you know, the optic broke. I plan on putting that into the video. And then they got back to me and said, well, actually, it is not meant to be dropped. It is not meant for that kind of abuse. However, if they are recommending it for concealed carry, I do believe it should be drop resistant. At that point in time, they offered to send me two different optics. One was the Bear because I was interested in a closed emitter optic, and the other one was the Ghost. The Ghost, as you can see here, has these big ridges around it. Kind of look like the McDonald's arches, and this is definitely going to protect the optic. However, this is ugly. This makes the optic huge. I would not want that on my concealed carry, so it isn't for me. But if you're looking for something a little bit more durable and that's what you're worried about, that is definitely an option for you. They did say that their Bear has not gone through all their rigorous testing yet, so they don't know what it's like, but more details to come. I will be giving those a go as time goes by. Something else to mention, I don't know if this was before or after my conversation with them, but their website now lists things that are impact rated or not. And I think that's a little bit more fair when you are selecting a concealed carry optic because I feel like it should be drop tested and impact rated. I don't know if it was before or after I had my conversation with them, but when I was originally looking at it, I did not see anything for it on their websites. But I was looking at it on the mobile version. Maybe I missed it. I dare say I wasn't looking for it at that point in time, but afterwards I did see it on their website while browsing a little bit further. So what did you think? Was I unfair with the Cyelee Optic? Is it more reliable than maybe I gave it credit for? Have you had similar failure points, or have you been running it for a long time and you trust it to be on your concealed carry firearm? Thank you for joining me once again on the Reaver Approach channel. We will see you all on the next one.